Okay. Genesis chapter 12, verse 10. There was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to stay there for a while because the famine in the land was severe. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "Look, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' They will kill me, but let you live. Please say you are my sister, so that it will go well for me because of you, and my life will be spared on your account." When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her to Pharaoh. So the woman was taken to Pharaoh's household. He treated Abram well because of her, and Abram acquired flocks and herds, male and female donkeys, male and female slaves, and camels. But the Lord struck Pharaoh and his household with severe plagues because of Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh sent for Abram and said, "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She's my sister,' so that I took her as my wife? Now, here is your wife. Take her and go." Then Pharaoh gave his men orders about him, and they sent him away with his wife and all he had. 13:1. Abram went from Egypt to the Negev, he, his wife, and all he had, and Lot with him. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. He went by stages from the Negev to Bethel, to the place where Bethel and Ai, where his tent had formerly been, to the site where he had built the altar, and Abram called on the name of the Lord there.
That's God's word. You know, we all have fears. I know there's probably a macho guy in the room that's like, "No, I don't." You're a liar. I fear bees because they kill me, and bears because they kill me. Some of you might be public speaking is the thing you're afraid of, which seems silly to me. Or maybe it's something like you fear some kind of ailment, right? We all have them. And then as I started thinking about fear, I thought of all the amusing ones I could find on the internet, and I went down a rabbit trail, which you don't need to do. One that's I've always thought was funny is spiders. Like, especially in Alaska, you know, they can't kill you here, right? Like, they're just a little critter. But did you know that there's a phobia out there of being without your phone now? That's a legitimate phobia now, is that people are like, "I don't have my phone." Did you know that this is for you, Dad, there's a phobia of yellow, the color yellow. His favorite color is yellow. He wears yellow all the time. Did you know that that's a real phobia? I didn't know that. It's a weird one. Fear of balloons. It's another one. I'm not joking. There's real things. They have real clinical names for these. And lastly, one of my favorite, and I actually knew somebody that I know somebody that has this, a fear of feet, which is funny because you have them. Right. See, the thing is, though, fear can be a powerful thing. True? I mean, think about it. It can grip you and control you. It can control your next actions. So I'm asking you this morning, what do you fear? Now, I think that there's sometimes we might be a little bit mistaken with fear. Like sometimes, like we need a little bit of a fear instinct to be like the fear of the Lord. Like he's an awesome, great God. He's awesome, great, and also like he's kind of terrifying, right? But there's often fears that we have that change the course of what we do, really for the negative. When was the last time you changed your plans because of your fear? Well, I have a slide for you. Go ahead, Gideon. That's me. And I have a thing that every time, that's my dad's four-wheeler, actually, funny enough that he's here. Every year, when I get on a four-wheeler, first thing I do is I roll it. It's ridiculous. That is flat ground, and I rolled it. I was 100 yards onto the trail. I do it every single time. Where's Cody? Because Cody was so gracious enough to take a picture of me while that happened. He was so loving and caring and respectful. He was like, "Hey, Pastor, I'd love to take a picture of you." And then send it to me later, like last week. "Remember when this happened?" So encouraging. Why did I roll? Why do I do this every year? Why do I roll a four-wheeler? Well, if you know anything about four-wheelers, is that the throttle is your best friend. It's when you go into something timid that you roll. And every year I go, I'm going to roll, I'm going to roll, I'm going to roll. Yeah? guess what happens? I roll. Because instead of hitting the gas, I hit the brake. Even though I know, and I've been on some gnarly trails, I know hit the gas. And yet I always hit the brake. Last week we introduced, you can please, thank you, the humiliation up there. Last week we got introduced to Abram, who's later going to be called Abraham, and we saw that God had chosen him and made a covenant with him. Not because of anything he did that was awesome. God just chose him from a people that were moon worshipers. And he calls him out. He says, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you into a great nation. And I'm going to bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And Abram, in faith, actually follows God's call and actually leaves his social structure, his family, extended family, and he goes. And we're like, wow. But the very next verse, we see Abram quickly forgets all that God has promised him, and he falls into fear. Let's look at it. First, I want to actually frame things. We're going to look at what caused his fear. What is the effects of his fear? What is God's response? So let's look at what causes his fear. You can do this slide. There we go. Verse 10. There was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to stay there for a while because the famine in the land was severe. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "Look, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife,' and they will kill me, but let you live. Please say you are my sister, so it will go well for me because of you, and my life will be spared on your account." First of all, this is a cringe story. True? Yeah, pretty gross. What's the first thing that is causing him to fear? Did you see it? Verse 10. There's a famine. Now, most of you probably know famine, shortage of food. We kind of need food to live, right? And it seems really logical. He knows that there's food in Egypt, right? It's reasonable, isn't it, to go to where there is food? If there's a shortage in your land, to go somewhere else? I mean, let's just face it. How many of you would get up and go to a job in some other place to provide? That's the same thing. So he's getting up and he's going to a land to provide for his family. Here's the problem, though. There's no talking to God in any of this. He's deciding on his own will and his own logic. See, God had promised, I will bless you. Promise. But Abram didn't check with God. He acts in his own rational intellect, his own intuitions. He fears the famine over trusting God. He's gripped by fear. Abraham acts with his eyes rather than by faith. The famine says, I need to get out of here. It's a knee-jerk reaction. And there's one of two things he's probably believing in the moment. He says, one is that if I go to Egypt, I will be alive. This is probably the better of them, so that God's promise can come true. Have you ever done this? Like if God has promised something, I need to make a way for it to happen. Like as if God can't do it himself. I mean, we do this, right? We do this all the time. Church planning, let me tell you, we do this. Because I've done it. Or two, that God may take care of me in the future. But for the here and right now, I got to take care of myself. Have you ever been there? Yeah, God promised an eternal life. But right now, this thing he's promised, I got to make a way for myself. Whatever way that functions in your life. Regardless, both of these actions are actually not believing God's promise. That's the reality. They're not believing the promise. So first, the thing that he fears is the famine. The second one is in connection to his wife. The wife, by the way, who was promised with him to be a great nation. So she's actually part of the promise. Do you realize that? So this same wife, he says, "You are beautiful." Well, what a compliment. Thank you, honey. You're so gorgeous. You're so gorgeous that when people see you, they'll kill me. Tell them you're my sister. Which actually we find out later is a half-truth. She is his half-sister. Don't cringe too much. It's okay. Early days, gene pool, it's fine. She is his half-sister, so it's only a half a lie. You know, half a lie is a full lie. It's still a lie in that he's doing it in wrong intent. He asks her to join him in a lie. Why? For his self-preservation. He's not thinking about his wife. What's the inclinations for her? He's thinking, how might I be treated? He's thinking about himself. By the way, husbands in the room, this is really messed up. And in multiple ways. Because in marriage, your first priority is her. To care for her, to protect her. In the garden, you actually see that is his job, is to protect. The serpent shouldn't have been allowed in the garden. He should have stomped it out. But here, for self-preservation, he's making his bride, the one he's to protect, a shield for himself. Now let's just pause. And we'll get to the effects of this fear in a minute, but let's talk about what fear is really. Let's just pause about this. It's more than a bodily function, right? You can feel fear, right? I'll be honest. Every time I get up here and preach, I sweat, and it stinks because it's a fear response. It is true. It just happens. Sorry, I know, that's gross. But if you're ever wondering, why does he stink? That's why. It's more than physiological or psychological. Fear is more than just the thing in your brain. It's no less than spiritual. It is those things, but it is also spiritual. At its root, it's actually faithlessness for the believer. For the believer, fear is faithlessness. Now, again, I said that there's different kinds of fear, right? Like, there's certain ones, like if a bear jumps out, you should have a physical response, like, oh, right? But we're talking about a fear that is like, I'm going to dwell on this thing. It's not a reactionary, quick reactionary. This is like a long thing. He's thinking about this. How do I get out of this, right? He's not believing God's word. He's denying the power of God, he's denying God's authority, and he's denying God's plans and purposes. That's what he's doing in his fear. Now, he's not probably consciously doing it, he's subconsciously doing it. Fear is trusting oneself and one's schemes, our knowledge, our cleverness, and honestly, it's stupid. Finite creatures. It just is. But did you know that fear can be active and passive? What do I mean then? I mean, it can be active in that you can consciously know what you are doing, but fear keeps you from doing the thing that you know that you should be doing, right? It keeps you from the thing that you know you should do. It can be passive in that you're not even considering what you should be doing, what God wants. Rather, it's just your MO. It's just what you've always been doing. I do what I think is best. It's what makes sense to me right now. By the way, all foolish plans in life, all foolish plans seem logical in the moment. You know, as a believer, if you are one this morning, I think we often subcategorize faith and fear into big picture and day to day. In other words, we trust God for the big pictures, the eternal, but in the day-to-day, that's where we have a hard time. Is that true? It's the day-to-day struggles that we have a hard time. It's trusting God today. By the way, that is the big picture. Trusting God today is the big picture. He will do it. It's a day-by-day process. Trusting day by day means God is more than theoretical. Because when we think of it out there, like, oh, someday he'll do this thing, that can be theoretical. You know what I mean by that? Like, oh yeah, I conceptually believe that God will do these things. But it actually requires much more for the day-to-day. It requires a relationship. And it's hard. It's so hard that we see everyone in the Bible, except for one that I know, deal with this problem. In some way or another, they fear. Let's look at the effects of this fear. Verse 14, when Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, so the woman was taken to Pharaoh's household. He treated Abram well because of her, and Abram acquired flocks and herds and male and female donkeys, male and female slaves and camels. But the Lord struck Pharaoh and his household with severe plague because of Abram and wife Sarah. So Pharaoh sent for Abram and said, "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister so that I took her as my wife? Now, here is your wife. Take her and go." Then Pharaoh gave his men orders about him, and they sent him away with his wife and all he had. The first result we see is that she's taken. And I don't know about you, but that's pretty rough. Does this remind you of any other stories, though? Stories that we've been over already? There's actually language in here that is really triggering. They saw that it was beautiful, and then they took. Does that remind you of anything? Genesis 3. It's exactly the same wording in Genesis 3. They saw that the fruit was beautiful for the touch, and then they took it. Where was, and I'm off my notes, it's okay. Where was Adam that whole time? Right next to her. That's what we see. Because then she goes, oh, and then she just gave him some fruit. Right? Here's the thing. In this story, he's actually acting more like the serpent. Why? When the serpent came to Eve, did he just tell a straight up lie? Or did he twist it slightly? Oh, he twisted it. Just the wording off, just enough. It's a half-truth. Which a half-truth is not the truth. And again, we see Abram, in a weird way, now acting. The one of the blessing would come through is now acting like a serpent. Fear over faith results in damaged relationships. One of the things we'll see through this series is that, through Abraham, is that their relationship is damaged. Shocking that it would be damaged. Because what he has actually done is instead, just like Adam, when he should have been secure, it should have been a security for her, now she is marginalized. Here's the thing. Fear denies. Isaiah 43:1. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. Fear is what keeps Israel out of the promised land for 40 years. And as they were going in, God told Joshua, as you enter in, have I not commanded you, be strong and of great courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed. Why? For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Fear denies God with us. It denies God's presence among us. And in 2 Timothy 1:7, it tells us, for the Spirit of God God gave us, does not make us timid or fearful, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. Fear doesn't come from God. Where does it come from? John 10:10, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you might have life and life abundantly. Where do you think it comes from? Fear actually robs us of that 2 Timothy passage. Did you see what it said? The Spirit of God doesn't make us fearful, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. God is the one that gives power. Did you realize that the reason he feared going into Egypt is he was powerless in here? But did you remember back last week, we actually saw that God told him to go to the land that I will tell you, which meant that God was going with him, that God was never leaving him. And so again, here we see that God is actually a God that comes with us. He dwells with us, and he's the one that promises that all power, he's the one that will give power, love, and self-discipline. All three of which he is struggling with right now. See, Abram didn't need to do schemes to trick Pharaoh. He just needed to trust God. That God was the God of his promises. That God of the promise that he had made, he would complete it. You guys seeing a theme here as we go through Genesis? It's just God showing up over and over again. People messing up and God showing up and being consistent about it. Yeah, Abram, his fear caused himself to serve self over his wife. Did you also notice something else in this? Let's think about this. That the effects of his fear are an attempt to ruin God's plan. No, I don't think consciously. But they are. They're an attempt to ruin God's plan. Because the fear isn't just coming from him, it's coming from somewhere else, right? God didn't give us the power of fear. It may be from you, but it also could be from Satan. Verse 15, look at it. If Sarah was with Pharaoh, how is God going to produce a great nation through him? How? If she's now somebody else's wife or concubine or whatever she is exactly, then how is God going to complete his plan? It seems at this moment God's plan has been foiled. Oh, God. All the schemes of man. Fear still does this today, by the way. It still does the same thing. God calls us to do something, and we tell him, I can't. I can't. Why? I can't tell somebody about Jesus. Why? I fear what they might say. I can't go there. It doesn't have a Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know. That's probably not your place. Whatever it is, right? We have fears that God is like, oh, I can't do that thing because I have to have this thing. Fear is an active attempt to destroy God's plan. Guess what, though? There's good news. It never works. Spoiler alert, it never works. Because no power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck you from his hand, which means you can't foil God's plans. The gates of hell will not prevail. God will accomplish his plan. Let's look at God's response. First thing to note, Pharaoh goes thinking, I get this wife and, hey, you're my brother-in-law, here's all this stuff. And by the way, the animals, it's not really, I don't really want donkeys, but that's wealth. That's what he's giving him. He's giving him an abundance of wealth. He walks away from Egypt richer than when he came in. Now, this is despite Abram's fear. Why is God still providing for him? I'll tell you why. Because he promised to. God still keeps his word. He still blesses him. And did you see as the story went on, like as soon as Sarah gets in there, what hits Pharaoh's family? A plague. Why? Well, because it's subverting God's plan, and God had said that I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Here's the thing. We have no idea how Pharaoh figured this out. It doesn't really matter in the story. What is clear is that Pharaoh actually had a higher view of marriage than Abram did. That's sad. He says, I don't want your wife. Take her and go. This should also remind you of other things. These stories are hyperlinks not only of the garden, going out of the garden, they're also the Exodus story. There's these hyperlinks between the two. You know what I'm talking about? Click hyperlink. These stories between the two. We're supposed to be looking at this with eyes and going, wow, God is a God of blessing, who blesses his people. Despite all of Abram's faithlessness, God still blesses him. It's just over and over again. Doesn't that seem unfair? That's because it isn't fair. That's the reality. Here's the thing. You don't want a God who's fair, because then we would all burn. What we want is a God who is both just and gracious at the same time. He's a God of justice. He will carry out justice. However, he's also a God of infinite grace and mercy. Because here's the thing. This story is not really so much about Abram. I'm sorry to break the news to you. It's actually about God and God's faithfulness, despite our failures, despite Abram's failures. This life that you're living is not about you. It's actually about his story, his faithfulness in your life. I know, shocking. And we see this over and over in Scripture. We see it over and over in our lives. We mess up, we mess up, and we mess up. And we think, like, well, if I really ruined it this time, and what does God do? He steps in again. Sometimes it doesn't look that way, but he does. I was remembering Elijah. You remember this? The story of Elijah, the most famous story of Elijah. He goes up, and there's the prophets of Baal, and they're like, all right, let's have a showdown. It's either Yahweh or Baal, and they're all dancing around, cutting themselves, and nothing happens, right? And Elijah just prays. He's like, douse it with water. He prays. Boom, this ball of fire burns up and consumes everything. And it's like a heyday. They even kill the prophets, the prophets of Baal. And it's like, Elijah's like crowning, like, look at the man of faith. He prayed and fire came down. What's the next thing that happens? Jezebel goes, hey, I'm coming after you. He's like, oh no, run away. And what does he do? He hides in a cave. He's afraid. What does God do? He graciously comes to him. He feeds and cares for him. That's the kind of God we have. That's the God of the Old Testament. It's the God of the New Testament. It's the same God. You know, in the Bible, biblical history, everyone is faultful. Everyone is faithless, really, in some sense. Everyone fears, but one. But one. God faithfully brought a true deliverer, a greater blessing, a greater inheritance in Jesus. Think about this, when the disciples were fearful in the garden and they fled, Jesus remained faithful to the plan. Going to the cross, knowing what was going to happen. He defeated Satan's sin and death so that we who place our faith in him have already won. Jesus made those same fearful disciples a promise. He actually made you the same promise. He said, I am going to prepare a place for you. This is actually key to defeating fear. It's hope. Hope in a promise. Hope in a consistent God who makes consistent promises. If all hope for life is right now, let's think about this. The way we live is right now. If my hope is for a car, for a job, for a wife, for a kid, guess what? It all vanishes. It all is fleeting. It will not last. But, Christian, if that is what you are, you have hope for a future. I realize that this is a hard thing to think about. How many of you struggle with this? I know it's church, but be honest. How many of you struggle with this, thinking about going to a new earth, heaven? Just me? Oh, thank you, Jude. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Right. Why? Because you've never been there. If I tell you, hey, Cannon Beach is beautiful, it's wonderful, you should go, it's the most gorgeous place, I love it, it rains a little bit, but it's awesome. You're like, where? Cannon Beach is it got a big rock and the sandy beaches. You're like, I kind of have a picture in my head. And the Bible doesn't really describe a lot of New Earth, right? It's just, okay, so here's the thing. Now I want you to think about this. The one that you love is there. It changes it, doesn't it? I remember when Rosie and I were dating, I drove from Seattle, and I know you guys know this, to Fairbanks in 53 hours with 1 hour of sleep. Not because I love Fairbanks. I don't. It's called Trash Banks if you're from there. But because I love the one that was there. Friends, this is a reality here for us today, too. If you are a believer, your affection is not necessarily just for the heaven, but it's the hope of the one who you get to be with for all time. This requires a relationship. It required one for Abram then, and it requires one for us now. It is by faith that we are saved, through God's grace. And yet, the relationship has to be something where we look to, we yearn for. If he's a theoretical idea, it's not going to be enough. But if we hope for the one, then the place, if we know that he's a good God, that this is the kind of God he is, that if he says, I'm going to prepare a place for you, we can know this, it's going to be way better than all the brokenness we have now. Even your best day, the brokenness is still just clouding it. The most fun thing that you ever have, the next thing is well, what's tomorrow? Monday. Right? But if the one that you're hoping is the one that you actually have a relationship, then all hope is worth resting in. Do you have hope in Jesus and the promises of a new heaven and a new earth? Do you see his faithfulness? Means you don't need to fear. I know it's hard. If you're not a believer, I think you have a lot to fear for. I feel for you. Come talk to me. Because God doesn't want you to stay in a place of fear. He said, I don't give you a spirit of fear. He can give you power, love, and self-discipline. But the story's not fully end. You're like, Josh, it's going late. That's all right. Don't worry about it. Time crunch, whatever. The end of the story here, it's not really the end of his story, but Sometimes chapter breaks just drive me crazy, so let's look at 13. Abram went up to Egypt to the Negev, he, his wife, and all he had, and Lot with him. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver and gold. Wonder why? God, maybe? Yeah. He went by the stage from the Negev to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had formerly been. Where is he? Where he had formerly been. Well, then he says, to the site where he had built an altar. And Abram called on the name of the Lord there. Friends, here's the reality. If you are struggling with fear of any kind, you can return to the altar. And what does he do? He calls on the name of the Lord again.